Hi guys, today we're going to be talking about correspondences for Protection Magick, and I wanted to get into almost like a little correspondences mini series for this grimoire playlist. I know a lot of you love the grimoire playlist, and for those of you who are new to my channel, basically my grimoire playlist includes different spells, it includes information, tips and tricks for successful magic, just like the building blocks that can help you in your own spell work practice and help you create your own spells essentially. Now I just want to put the disclaimer out there that this by no means is an all-encompassing list of all the correspondences, because there are so many correspondences in the world and there's going to be layers and so many variances depending on what culture, what part of the world you're from, your own personal beliefs. But with that being said, this is a really nice kind of introduction. I do want to bring up some of the history of correspondences because they're really powerful, and the reason being, correspondences weren't just made up one day. These come from hundreds or even sometimes thousands of years of history. It comes back to this one specific point in time, something that specifically happened, and then from there it's built, and from there it goes across the world, and different beliefs are then exchanged and passed along. What makes correspondences so powerful is that it was believed to represent this thing, represent this symbolism for so many years by thousands and thousands of people. When I was preparing for this video, I really got into how deep the history was. I did not realize some of the origins of these correspondences, and I'm like, holy cow, this is really cool. And I am going to share some of that history with you guys today, but at the same time, I can't even possibly fit all of that in a video without it being hours long and ridiculous, and no one's going to watch that. So I need to make sure that it's digestible, and I'm going to give you like a snippet, a little bit of information here and there so you understand, where these come from, but also just to inspire you to do your own research. I'm going to leave some links down in the description box below if you guys want to read more, if you guys get really curious and want to do more research. But honestly, there's just so much information out there, and it's really, really cool, and I hope this just inspires you, and I hope this gives you the building blocks to start creating your own spells if you haven't already and you want to do that, or just to give you more layers of knowledge in your own spell work practice, because it doesn't hurt to have. So yeah, without any further ado, let's get into some of the correspondences for Protection Magick. So we're going to start with crystals, and crystals especially. Honestly, there's so many crystals out there and so many crystals associated with protection, but I do want to talk about like the main ones, most commonly used ones that most people associate Protection Magick with. Now, a rule of thumb with crystals and Protection Magick is that overall, most of the time, if you come across a crystal that is a little bit deeper in color, like the more like darker blacks, kind of gray tones, browny tone crystals, those are usually associated with grounding and protective energy. That's just the case for a lot of them. With that being said, there's other crystals that are considered to be protective in other ways that are not those colors, but that is just like a general rule of thumb to kind of make it easier for you to spot crystals that may be protective in energy. So black tourmaline is definitely a very popular and common one used for protection. Black tourmaline is known to, eliminate negative energy. It's one that we like to keep on ourselves when we're around really negative people or energy vampires to protect our energy. It essentially is considered to repel negative forces. I'm not gonna lie, this is one that I've put in my bra on multiple occasions. When I know I'm about to be around a very energetically draining person and I want to protect my energy, this has been one I've definitely used. Another one I love to use is smoky quartz. Smoky quartz is so great at cleansing your aura, so just like really cleaning out that negative energy. It's often seen as like an energetic shield, so another one that's nice to have on you. Another one that's really nice if you want to do any sort of like crystal healing. Obsidian. Obsidian's another great protective crystal. Again, you can kind of see the theme of color here. Obsidian's a really nice protective crystal also, not just for protection in general, but also protection in travel. So it's a nice one to have in your car. If you do any sort of spell bag for your car, which I personally like, and I actually have a video on that. You could put obsidian in your car's protection bag. It's a nice one to have for that. On top of that though, obsidian is very healing in its energy too. So if you are already affected by negative energy, be it from some sort of outside source, like a really negative person, or maybe like a tough situation that you're in, maybe you're stressed from work, whatever it may be, obsidian might be really helpful for you in helping to clear that negative energy that's already, attached to you, clear that away and cleanse it, and just like reestablish those boundaries and that protective layer of energy around you. A lot of people also find that this crystal is very helpful for instilling more courage. So maybe you're going through a really tough time in your life. Obsidian could be a very helpful tool just to keep on you, to remind yourself that, you're courageous, you're strong, you can get through this. Onyx. So onyx is one of those crystals that repels negative energy, but it also attracts good luck. So it's kind of like a two-in-one thing, like protect you, but also bring in the good energy. And this one actually goes back to, Chinese culture too. And the Chinese believe that this crystal was protective in nature, and it's often used in feng shui. And we don't just see onyx in Chinese history, but also in ancient Indian and Persian tales, it is seen as the protector from evil. So we see this crystal dates back like hundreds of years, seen as a protective stone. So it comes from somewhere. Hematite is another crystal often used for protection, not just energy protection, but people actually use it for EMF protection. So if you're going to be around a lot of electronics, maybe you have, a work desk where you work at your computer for hours, then having hematite on your work desk could be very helpful for you, just to protect yourself from those basically electrical waves, currents that you might be coming in contact with a lot. Now we get into the other crystals that aren't necessarily like the dark black brownish colors, but they're still very protective in nature and really nice to include in your spell work. So clear quartz is one of those. Clear quartz just has a very beautiful pure energy. It's going to help you protect your energy, but specifically it's going to raise your vibration. So it's amazing to have if you're going to be around low vibe people, low vibe environment, you're dealing with some tough stuff, it's nice to have that crystal on you to raise your vibration. But also, like, if you're doing any sort of spell work, or maybe you're doing a house cleanse or something, it's just nice to have around. Along with that, we have selenite. Selenite is just such a pure crystal. It's so nice because it's self-cleansing. So you can cleanse a space with it, you can cleanse your other crystals, you can cleanse your energy with it, but on top of that, it will cleanse itself. So it just really is a great all-encompassing protective crystal. A lot of people like to keep it like along their windowsill or by like your door entrance, just to like cleanse any energy before it comes in. Basically how it works is it absorbs negative energy and transmute it. So think of selenite as your transmuter crystal. It's very much that energy. Bloodstone. So bloodstone is very protective, but also very grounding as well. And when I say grounding, I'm talking like when you are really caught up in your head and you're caught up in this chaotic energy, maybe you're stressed from work. When we get too much up here, we need to ground, we need to connect to earth again, we need to, connect to our lower chakras and get that sense of security and safety again. Like a lot of us get stressed, become anxious, overthinking, experience these difficult emotions because we don't feel safe, because we don't feel secure. And it's because the root chakra, the lower chakras, they need some love. So bloodstone's great for that. It's also great for boosting courage. It was also a stone that was often gifted to warriors and heroes on the battlefield. So this goes back again hundreds, thousands maybe of years. Amethyst. So amethyst is really unique in that it's connected to, our intuition, our psychic ability, our third eye. So because it has this association with the psychic realms, it is very much seen as that protective crystal for like psychic energy. So we're talking like energy vampires, we're talking like negative spirits, entities that may attach themselves to you. Maybe you're somebody who does a lot of, dream work, like astral projection, where sometimes you can come in contact with not so great energy. Now, I personally haven't, but people have had, experiences, encounters with coming in contact with negative entities during certain rituals, during certain work. So amethyst is considered very protective on like the psychic realm, or I'm trying to think of what word to explain this, but for example, like if you are going to do dream work, put amethyst under your pillow, or maybe you add some amethyst to a jar spell or a charm bag that you use by your bedside, or maybe you use amethyst to protect you when you're connecting with spirit. On top of that, amethyst is also seen as very calming. It's really good for stress and anxiety. So maybe you keep amethyst with you when you are, I don't know, maybe you're in school and you have exams and you have really bad anxiety. Then it could be a very protective crystal to help with that. Citrine. So citrine is often seen as a money crystal, but it's also really good for stress as well and burnout. So if you're somebody who has like a lot of work stress, for example, or you're really stressed about money, citrine can also be that kind of like 2-in-1 of like bringing you abundance, but also easing that anxiety and being protective in that way. It's really good to help protect against energetic drainage. So my next one I want to talk about is moonstone. So moonstone is really cool because it also has a rich history. Moonstone has actually been used as a protective talisman for travelers throughout history. So people would travel with it for protection. A lot of people might use it to go traveling with, so they might bring it on a plane for protection for their flight. Some people might put moonstone in their luggage to protect it from, you know, being lost or stolen. Tiger's eye is also very protective and very encouraging to help you hone in on your inner strength. So if you feel like you need that protection and that encouragement to help you get stronger and deal with some tough things in your life, then tiger's eye could be a really nice one to use for that. Really nice one to include in any sort of spell bag or just keep on you in your pocket or your purse. It is a very grounding crystal as well, and it's also very helpful to, you know, clear negativity from your path. So maybe you're about to start something new and you just like are really nervous about certain things, certain obstacles you might encounter. Tiger's eye is very helpful to kind of clear the way for you and help you overcome the obstacles and the negative energy that you might encounter along the way. Turquoise is another one. So turquoise has energetic protection, but also specifically protecting against any unwanted spirits. This is a problem I feel like that isn't super common, and I think a lot of people get really scared when entering the witchcraft world because they're worried about evil spirits or demons and stuff. And I just want to say, like, that is not the most common problem. Like, that is not something that people encounter a lot, and I think people just kind of blow it out of proportion. I mean, I have never had any negative spirits or anything bad like that happen to me in all my practice. And I think you have to be smart too, and you have to protect yourself. But at the end of the day too, like, I think it's still blown out of proportion. Obviously, depending on the kind of work you do, you might encounter that more often than other people. I mean, if you're gonna do more spirit work, and then there's nothing bad with that, but you're gonna encounter more varieties of spirits, and you know, the more spirits you encounter, the higher the chance that you're gonna come into contact with one that isn't so great, because not every single spirit is gonna be super positive, right? Like, I personally don't really do a lot of spirit work. Obviously, I'm not gonna have as many encounters with negative spirits as somebody who literally summons spirits all the time, and that's a big core part of their practice. So now I want to get into some herbs. So these are some just common herbs that are used for getting rid of any negative energy, for cleansing. These definitely have a deep history. We see these throughout so many different cultures. We're gonna go through some of the main ones today, give you a little bit of a starting point, and yeah. So the first one I want to talk about is Angelica. So Angelica is really cool because it's actually associated with the Archangel Michael. It's kind of in the name, Angelica, it's angelic, right? So Archangel Michael is actually a spiritual warrior in the battle of good versus evil. And he's also a healer and a guardian. So it makes sense then that this herb that is associated with him is then associated with protection. So people actually use Angelica to protect them against the plague. And I mean, if we looked into the science, we'd probably find that Angelica on its own is not going to cure the plague or prevent you from getting the plague, right? But this is where it comes from. It comes from these older beliefs that are then passed down generations and generations. And this is why today we associate Angelica with protection. It's just really cool how it happens. So Angelica is really nice if you want to create any sort of protective amulets, spell bags, spell jars. And I'm not saying to use it to protect against the plague, but use the symbolism. Use it to protect against negative energy. Use it to protect against your own negative thoughts. Maybe you create an amulet or a charm bag to keep on you with some Angelica in it to help you be a more positive person. Basil. So basil is something that honestly is so easy to get your hands on. You can get it at any sort of grocery store. You can grow it yourself, and that makes it even more special. Like, it's really cool to have your own herbs from your own garden. So the cool thing with basil is Europeans would place basil in the hands of the dead to ensure safe passage to the next plane of existence. Like, did you guys know that? I didn't know that. I just learned that when I was researching. I'm like, that is really cool. So they saw basil as this protective herb to help you get to your next stage of existence, the next plane of life. And I mean, when you think of it that way, it's like, okay, basil could then be a very helpful tool, very protective herb for when you're traveling. Maybe not a plane. You might get stopped by security and you're like, what herbs are you carrying, right? So maybe not that, but like maybe, I don't know, you're going on a hike or something. Basil can be seen as protective in like your travels or just protective in energy in general. And I like basil specifically for like kitchen magic, house magic, you know, the house witch type stuff, because it's something that you can easily cook with. So you can easily make a dish intended for protection by intentionally adding your basil to that dish. It's really cool. Clove is another one that is used for protection. In folk magic, it is used to remove negative energy and also ward off evil. You can use it in home protection, so maybe like over your doors or your windowsill you put some clove. You could also use it to protect against nightmares, and also again kitchen magic. It's another one that's just so easy to cook with, and clove is just a beautiful herb to use around, you know, the fall time, during Mabon or Thanksgiving, whatever you celebrate. So yeah, it's a nice herb to include, again, with the intention of protection. All right, so the next one I'm going to talk about is devil's shoestring. Devil's shoestring are dried roots of some types of plants in the honeysuckle family. So the devil's shoestring can actually be tied, and it can actually be hanged above the door. So like protection for the home, which is really cool. You could also include it in tinctures, protection, and banishing spells too, because realistically banishing is a form of protection. You can do, you know, preventative protection spells to prevent negativity from coming in, prevent negativity from affecting you. But what do you do when it already has, right? Sometimes you have to do some banishing works. So devil's shoestring could be very helpful for the banishing element there. The next one we're going to talk about is garlic. And I feel like a lot of you are probably going to like think about something specific. When you think of garlic, we think of vampires, right? It's because it has some history. It's not solely Hollywood, and Hollywood definitely blew up the garlic vampires connection. But throughout history, we see garlic referenced in, you know, all sorts of literature as protection from evil. So this included demons and vampires, but you know, in some cultures they believed that garlic protected against witches, back when they believed witches to be these evil demon things. But you know, we can take from that, yes, you know, it was turned into something a little bit unrealistic with Hollywood and everything, but at the end of the day, garlic is still a protection against evil. So it's great for preventing negative energy from coming in the home. It's great to prevent against negative spirits or entities from affecting you or coming into your home again. A lot of people will use it to protect against hexes. If you, for some reason, have encountered someone who's trying to hex you, or something like that, like someone's trying to send negative energy towards you, it can be helpful for that. That being said, hexes, curses, all of that is extremely rare. The chances of another witch around hexing you or something is just like so uncommon, but people can unintentionally send you negative energy. And even if they're not, you know, in their room trying to create a spell to specifically affect you, they can still send you negative vibes. Garlic is helpful for that. It's also good for protection against gossip as well. Garlic was seen as this herb to reveal truth. too. Again, it's something that we cook with all the time in the kitchen. So think kitchen magic, you know, house witchery. There's so many different spells there that you can use garlic for. And another thing I want to mention is, yes, we may not have real vampires running around sucking people's blood. Some people might believe there are, but we do, however, have something called energy vampires, right? People that just suck the energy out of other people, especially empathetic people that are a little bit more of an easy target. It's so easy to use and so easy to work into your magic. So the next one is rosemary, another one of my favorites to cook with. It's great for house witchery, kitchen magic, but rosemary has historically been used for protection against evil spirits. It has been used in exorcisms as well, in many different cultures too. So this is not just one part of the world, but it's kind of like a universal thing that rosemary was just used for this reason. Often it is hung in the home as decorative, but also protection. So there's so many different recipes online too, where you can find bundles that are wrapped, that have rosemary wrapped in them, like the full twigs of rosemary. They're beautiful, they smell really good, they're really nice in the home, but they're also just really good for protection, just keeping the energy of the house fresh and clean. And the reason why rosemary might be seen as so protective is that throughout history, it was used in medicinal ways that were protective for health, protective to the human body. So, you know, it was seen as immune system support, for repelling insects. If it's seen as protective to our health, it then kind of makes sense that, you know, it started to be also seen as protective in spirit, because when we look back thousands of years, the people back then, they didn't have the science that we have today. So a lot of the more medical topics kind of intertwined a lot with spiritual ones. They didn't understand how certain things worked and why they worked. So a lot of more, you know, spiritual reasoning was given of why something worked. You know, it's like, oh, you know, the spirit of the herb is what cured them, not the, you know, chemical properties of it. Now I want to talk about sage. And when I say sage, I'm not specifically just talking about white sage. And I will mention white sage because obviously it's part of history, it's part of cultures around the world, but when I say use sage, I'm not saying use white sage. You know, obviously if you're part of the culture that utilizes white sage, if you are Native American, it makes sense. But, you know, we have to be careful about appropriation. We have to be careful about how we buy these types of herbs, because there's a lot of white sage that is being sold in very unethical ways. We don't want to support big companies like Amazon that is literally stealing someone's sacred culture and profiting on it. That is very problematic. Now, with that being said, white sage is very overproduced right now, over harvested, and because of that, it is endangered, and because of that, people that are actually part of the culture that utilizes it for smudging are not able to get their hands on it. That's a problem. I just want to make it so clear that there's so many varieties of sage, a lot of which you can literally grow in your own backyard. Now, sage traditionally, medicinally, has been used to stop bleeding. It's a diuretic, it's a topical anesthetic, it's antiseptic as well. We know, of course, it's burned by many cultures, so Native Americans consider it sacred, and it has been used in the culture for generations in the practice called smudging. Sage also has a rich history in, you know, Egyptian, Roman, and Greek medicine, so it is seen as a very powerful and important herb all across, you know, different cultures. So it is burned often to cleanse negative energy from a space and also to ward off evil. You can add it to dishes in kitchen magic. It can be used in charm bags and spell jars. A lot of people will make cleansing sprays from sage. I personally like to use clary sage essential oil. You can hang it in bundles in your home as well to protect the home. The next thing I want to talk about is salt, because so many cultures use salt for protective and cleansing properties, and there's different types of salt, and I do actually have a video all about salt and magic, so I won't go into too much detail about this, but yeah, it's used in protective and purifying practices all across cultures, all across religions. It's used in purifying rituals in the Catholic Church. It is used in protective circles during exorcism. Amulets of salt were often worn to ward off evil spirits throughout history. Irish folk remedies included salt and prayer to cure those who were considered fairy struck. An interesting fact too, salt was also often used as an offering to deity. And the reason for this is because salt was seen as very valuable. And why? Because salt was able to preserve food for long periods of time. We're talking about hundreds of years back, before we had electricity, before we had freezers and refrigerators to preserve and keep our food good for long periods of time. People had to find ways to make sure their food didn't go bad. Now you can see how not understanding the science, but understanding, oh, this salt is magically preserving this food, it would then be seen as very valuable. It would then be seen as very sacred and protective, and then can be applied to all these other spiritual elements of life. So it's really cool where these ideas come from. And we see throughout history, it doesn't really matter where you are in the world, what religion, what spiritual belief, salt is seen as protective. So now we're gonna get into some protective symbols. There are so many symbols out there, guys, for protection. Universally believed ones, the ones that are just unique to different cultures, different places around the world. So I can't possibly talk about all of them, but I do want to talk about some of the main ones. One of which is the evil eye. I feel like everyone is, very familiar with the evil eye. So when we think of the evil eye, we think of the talisman that we see. The little eye, often it's like blue, and we see it on different charms or necklaces or bracelets. And it's believed to repel negative energy and also protect against negative forces. And it actually originated in Greece. The evil eye symbolism also exists in almost every country of the world. And the key thing to remember is that the ancient Greeks did a lot of traveling. They did a lot of interacting with different people around the world. They did a lot of cultural exchange. And that's why we see so many similarities between cultures. Evil eye came from this concept that if someone gave you a really dirty look, basically they believed that this could actually physically inflict harm on you, or that you could pick up on some form of bad luck from this look of malice, from this look of hatred. That's when we have, the evil eye. Charms come up to protect you from this evil eye that maybe your neighbor gave you, so that you don't have disaster, so you don't have bad things happen to you or your family. Now the next one I really want to talk about is the pentacle / the pentagram. And the reason why I really want to talk about this one is because it is so deeply misunderstood. And the problem is because Hollywood literally turned it into something scary, turned it into something where people mistaken it for demonic, mistaken it for working with the devil. In every single horror movie, Hollywood movie about any sort of supernatural, witchcraft, we always see the pentacle, and it's always associated with demonic rituals. And it's no wonder everyone's so scared of it. It's not accurate. I knew it was a symbol for protection, but I didn't realize how deep this goes. It's actually seen throughout different cultures, throughout history. A lot of people have associated with beautiful, really nice things. And it's also always considered sacred. So one of the interesting things, and especially interesting because this group of people are the ones that probably see it as the most evil in today's modern culture from misinformation, but they actually used the symbol one moment in time in history, was the Christians. And it was also used by the Greeks and the Egyptians. Now I'm gonna read you an excerpt. So if you actually Google why the Christians used the pentagram, and just to be clear, it used to be more commonly used than the cross itself. Among Christians, it has symbolized the 5 wounds of Christ, his hands and feet punctured by the crucifixion, and his side pierced by the soldier's spear, as well as the Star of Bethlehem in Christ himself. However, the symbol is used by Muslims, the Baha'i faith, and Wicca. So these are just other ones. I already mentioned the Greeks, the Egyptians. This is a symbol that is literally adopted by so many religions, so many different cultures. Now the belief of what it meant to them vary depending on the group. Essentially, there's 5 points, so they each represent something depending on who saw it. Today, the pentagram is generally seen as representing the elements. So there's 5 corners, so we see it as representing fire, water, earth, air, and spirit. And also the number 5 is seen as very mystical and sacred for a lot of people. Things only have so much meaning as you give them. Our intention, our energy gives things meaning. The next symbol I want to talk about is the Mars sign. If you guys are familiar with astrology, you'll be familiar familiar with the Mars symbol. So Mars itself as an energy is a very fiery planet. So it's connected to Mars, the Roman god of war. Now this energy is seen as helpful to boost your strength and your confidence. So you might use this Mars symbol to help give you that strength, that confidence, that extra protection, that fiery energy. Maybe you draw it on yourself with an eyeliner. Like that's magic too, right? Maybe you draw the symbol and you put it in a charm bag. Now, if you look at the symbol of Mars itself, and I'll put it on the screen for you guys, you'll actually see that it represents the shield, so the circle part, and then the spear of the god of war. So it makes it a really great protective symbol to utilize. You know, it's very visual in that way. The next symbol I want to talk about is a Hamsa hand. The roots for this symbol are in the ancient Middle East. It's also known as the Hand of Fatima. It's linked to various religions with varying names. So this is a protective symbol, an amulet against the evil eye. So again, the same sort of idea. We also have the Triquetra. This is also seen as the Holy Trinity. It embodies the concept of unity and eternity and connectedness. The 3 points signify different things depending on who you talk to, depending on what culture you're from, but all in all, it's seen as a very positive, protective symbol with good energy. So some people may see it as life, death, rebirth, this idea that, you know, nothing ever ends. We can see it as land, sea, and sky, protection, love, and unity. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So you actually find this symbol in Northern European rune stones. Find it engraved in ancient Germanic coins as well, and also on early Christian stones as well. So it's seen as a very sacred and protective symbol that is used all across the board. I also have just a list of miscellaneous protection correspondences. For one, colors that are often associated with protection are black and white. And also violet is seen as protective. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with the violet flame protective visualization that you can actually do to help protect you against negative energy. I do have a book that talks about that. This is a really cute little book. It's called The Little Guide to Protection Magic. You can just get this one online, but they do talk specifically about the violet flame in this book. And again, I'll link everything below for you guys. Other than that, I also put down horseshoes. A lot of people use horseshoes as protection and good luck, and they'll hang it in the home. Depending on who you speak to, what culture, some people will hang it this way so that it can kind of like catch the luck, or some people will put it upside down. There's varying beliefs. Rune stones from like the Elder Futhark. There are runes that are considered protective in nature, and I could literally go into the meaning of every single rune stone and why it's considered protective, but this video is gonna get too long, so I'm just gonna give you a few of them, and then you can do your research from there. But Algiz, Iwaz, Thurisaz, these are 3 of the protective runes, and I also have a link below that goes into why they're protective. Deities. So different people will connect with different deities that are considered protective. We did talk about Archangel Michael with the Angelica before. So Archangel Michael is considered a very protective deity or angel to work with. Athena is a Greek goddess, and she's a warrior. Brigid is a Celtic goddess, and she is a goddess of healing and protection. Another random item, iron nails. Iron is considered very protective, so a lot of people will use iron nails in certain spell jars for like banishing or like return to sender spells. I want to talk about timing, because timing can also be used as a correspondence in your spell. Timing matters. A full moon, for example, you know, the full moon has a lot of energy. Tuesday. So Tuesday specifically is connected to Mars. If you look at the French word for Tuesday, it's literally mardi. We see these connections if we like look at different languages, look at different cultures, but Tuesday's connected to Mars, and we've already talked about how Mars is protective. Saturday is connected to Saturn. So Saturn is actually associated with protection too. A lot of people will actually wear black on Saturday. And in Vedic astrology, Saturn is known as Shani, and black is Lord Shani's color. So people who wore black on Saturdays would then gain blessings, they would gain protection from Shani. And then another thing to consider too are the elements. So all elements are considered protective in their own way, really, and can be incorporated into your practice. So for example, earth is very grounding. Air, it's great for like releasing and blowing away negative energy. Fire is just so powerful for banishing and burning away negativity. Fire is very destructive, but it's very powerful for that reason. Water is seen as cleansing and purifying. So anyways, guys, I'm gonna leave it at there because I have been talking forever. My throat is dry and I still have 2 more videos to film. So I hope that this was helpful for you guys. I hope you guys at least learned something from this video. I know I learned some things. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe. It super duper helps out the channel. And I hope you guys have an amazing day or night whenever you're watching this. And I hope to see you guys in the next video. Bye guys.